CSX Big Jim's house. Good morning. Big Jim, Ryan Logan on the left there, and on the phone, it's Dan Miller from Fox 2. How are you, sir?
What do you say, guys? How are you?
We are in a good mood after the Lions yesterday, 4-1 on the season. And I know we've talked about this before, Dan. It's strange territory for you because you don't have to interview the players and ask the same old Monday questions. When are we going to turn it around? How do you feel about this? Are you learning from these losses? You can just take those and wad them up and throw them in the trash can.
Yeah, no, I got to keep asking the guys, how do you keep it going? They're sick of hearing it. No, just look, it's a different world with them playing the way they're playing. And I thought, every week you kind of learn something about them. And I thought yesterday was one of those games where they were just the better team going in. And you just at that point say, okay, go handle your business, pack up your briefcase and leave. And that's what they did. They went in there and they imposed their will and they got it done and move on to the next one. Work on this week, getting healthy and getting ready for a tough trip to Tampa. But that's what good teams do. If you're the better team on the field, you go out there, play that way. The scoreboard reflects that, and you move forward. And I thought that was a really nice box that they checked in that game yesterday.
So Dan Campbell, after the game, talking about how the players, when he talked, he's like, this could be a trap game, issues we got to be aware of. And then the players told him, Coach, we got that. Is that a Penei Sewell, Jared Goff? Kind of who are the leaders in the locker room?
Well, I would say, obviously those guys are some of them. Taylor Decker's one of them. I think this team has a lot of leaders. Alex Anzalone is one. I think some guys lead by the way that they act. Some guys lead by the way that they express themselves. Some guys lead by the way that they play. But I think this team has developed a number of guys that can take on that role. But I think, Jared kind of summed it up too. He said, we're becoming a really mature team. And mature teams understand, again, had to use that phrase again, how to handle their business. And I think that's what they were saying to Coach was, no trap game. We got this. Don't worry about it. And I think, look, over 17 games, you're going to have a couple clunkers. It just happens. And it will happen to this team in all likelihood at some point where they just don't play a game that we think is up to their standards they've set now, and we'll ask questions about it. But it just happens. But the better teams have it happen less often, and the better teams usually have it happen against, teams that might be a little bit worse than them or a flip game or something like that. But I think in this one, what he was saying was, he was worried about it. You got, back coming off a Green Bay game, looking ahead to a 2-game road trip they got coming up. 2 straight on the road, and maybe he was thinking, okay, here's an 0-4 team. I don't want my guys to take it lightly, and they said we're not, and they didn't, and that was apparent.
Yeah, hey, Dan, now I think I noticed goofy stuff in games that I don't think regular people notice. Do you have any insight? We were talking about Hutchinson of why he's not wearing gloves anymore.
I don't. I did not see that, so that is good on you for noticing that. He's clearly still got the hands. Because that was a heck of an interception he had in particular. At full speed, you didn't have great appreciation of it. When they slowed it down a little bit, you really could see what he did and just, what a freakish athlete he is. And Aiden is just, he's somebody who kind of has a loud name and a loud game, but he doesn't talk a whole lot, out in Allen Park. Sometimes you just forget he's even there because he just goes about his business, and he is relentless in trying to get better. He's just got an incredible work ethic. And that's not just getting after the quarterback. I think that is everything. You've seen that. He's, the first defensive lineman in NFL history to have 4 interceptions in his first 2 seasons. And he's got a long way to go in this one. And, if everybody approached the game like him, you'd be in good shape. But it's a pleasure to watch him hone his craft, because you can see how much it means to him and just his desire to be great.
Who would you compare Aiden Hutchinson to with that motor that he's got? Is there someone that comes to mind?
Yeah, it's tough. You see the guys out there, and it's not fair to compare him to some of the guys that have been around and doing it for a little bit longer, but he is moving into that class of game-changing defensive ends like the Bosa's or Max Crosby or somebody like that, guys that can just change a game with one play. And, I think, you can just kind of put him on his own and say he's Aiden Hutchinson, because I think he does some things better than some of those defensive ends. I mean, drops in coverage and does such a nice job, and is comfortable with ball skills out there if it comes his way. So I think it's fair to say that with his production and, you know, like I said, just relentless desire to be great, he is moving into that class of game-changing defensive ends, of which there are not a ton in this league, and you're lucky to have one. So I think he's, you know, when you start being mentioned in that group with that top tier, which I think he's moving into, that's really rarefied air. And look, there's a lot of pass rushers that get drafted in the NFL that just disappear because success on the college level does not translate to success on the pro level all the time, or even most of the time. But for him, he's figuring it all out and just getting better at all the time.
Have you ever seen the direct snap through the legs to a running back before in your career, Dan Miller?
No, I've not. And I'm sitting down with Jared a little bit later this morning, and I'm going to ask
I gotta
if he's
know.
done it before. You know, here's the thing: he's 6'4". You probably couldn't do that with a quarterback that's 5'10", because some stuff might get in the way, and it would just be. You know, if anybody plays golf, if you're Ragnow, I mean, that's like trying to drive it under a tree branch and then kind of rise it up onto the green. I mean, that's not an easy snap to make. It's just a good thing Jared's got some long legs there. But, you know, there's certainly the potential there for something to go really wrong and to end up on a blooper film. But I think that they pulled it off. They executed it well. It was a lot of fun. And again, we kind of had to go back and look at it and say, did he just do that or did Jared step aside?
I'm with you.
And, you know, he clearly snapped it right through his legs as Jared stood straight up and was barking out a signal. It's a really cool, innovative play.
Dan Miller, Fox 2 with us, Big Jim's house, Big Jim, Ryan Logan, and Ben Johnson, our offensive coordinator, coming up with stuff like this. If you get time at Allen Park, can you ask him, is he the kid in Little Giants who came up with the annexation of Puerto Rico play? I'm convinced he is.
I mean, you know, we haven't even gotten to the you know, flea flicker with 5 different, you know, passes of the ball: the snap, the handoff, the flip, back to Goff, then to Laporta, which San Francisco then goes out and runs the exact same play.
That was
night.
weird.
The side by side is wild.
The same play.
That's crazy. Both ending up with an Iowa tight end scoring a touchdown, which is crazy. But it was, I mean, look, I think we know at this point, Ben is incredibly creative, has no fear, and just complete trust in his guys to go out there and execute plays. And they did that there. And I think we all know that, you know, with, 12 games remaining or whatever it is, there's a lot more to come. And it definitely keeps defenses on their toes. But you know what? The reality of it is it really all starts with the ability to run the football, because as soon as he hands that ball off, everybody's got to respect the fact that the Lions are good at running the ball, and David Montgomery is a heck of a player, and they have to look at that. And once they do that and that ball starts moving around, that's when you can kind of get some defenses lost, and they did that.
David Montgomery is like the Roy Kent of the NFL. There's my Ted Lasso reference, but the way he runs is just so angry. And I saw that not aggression, but that intensity. He was on Amon-Ra St. Brown's podcast, and they were teasing him about being an Eagle Scout. And he wasn't going there. And he asked him, he goes, I could be the first guest to leave your podcast early. I'm like, He just seems like the kind of guy, man, when he put that chin strap on, he's a flat out beast.
He is, and he's got a great sense of humor. He's very smart, and you know, he's one of those guys that'll cut you with a comment before you realize he's even got a knife. And he's was terrific on that podcast. But you know, also I think he kind of got an insight into, you know, who he is with just his, you know, unwillingness to ever accept the fact that he's made it, or unwillingness to accept the fact that he's good enough, or anything along those lines. He is just constantly trying to get better. And, you know, I think a lot of people in this world kind of driven by failures that may have happened in the past, or doubts that may have, you know, been cast their way in the past. And he lets that, you know, forever move him to think, you know, that somebody's going to come along and tell him he's not good enough, or he's that guy that nobody wanted before, or wasn't a first-round draft pick before. And it just, whether that's manufactured in his head or whatever it is, it drives him, and it just makes him want to be great.
Characters revealed in adversity, not success, right? I mean, that's
Yeah,
and that's
and look, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I got some of that too. I mean, you guys know how tough this business can be, and I heard no an awful lot when I was coming up in this business. And then you get to a point where you're doing okay, and you don't even want to hear anybody tell you you're good because you just say, "I'm the same guy that you all told no to for a long time."
Right.
And I think that's what Montgomery has, and it's just, I think it's a motivation. I think there's fear that motivates and fear that paralyzes. I think sometimes fear that you're going to be found out or fear that you're not going to be good enough is a fear that motivates, and I think it's a really good thing. And I think that's what he's got. It constantly drives him to be better.
Love the fire in this team. Dan Miller, I just, you can hear it in your voice too. Thank you so much for the time. You have a safe trip to Tampa Bay. We'll stay in touch here, man, and this is going to be a hell of a game on Sunday.
Yeah, Bucks are tough, and the Lions have got to strap it on and be ready. Mayfield's playing some inspired football, and they've got a tough defense down there. It's never easy to play on the road. And like I said, we learn something about this team every week, and we'll learn something about them coming up this week. Dan
Miller, as always, appreciate the time. You be good. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Thanks. Dan Miller from Fox 2. Yeah, Montgomery, you and I talked about it before.